The massive crystal halls of the Zephyrian Imperial Palace echoed with the sound of 1,000 different alien voices. Emperor Vextar stood at the center of it all, his purple skin gleaming under the artificial lights. His forearms moved as he spoke, each gesture commanding the attention of every being in the room. "My loyal subjects," the Emperor's voice boomed through the hall. "We face a new threat to our perfect order. A species that dares to ignore our rightful authority." The crowd murmured in disbelief. For over 1,000 years, no one had challenged the Zephyrian Empire. Every species they encountered either submitted immediately or was crushed into dust. The Empire controlled half the galaxy, and their word was law on 10,000 worlds. "These creatures call themselves humans," Emperor Vextar continued. "They come from a small blue planet in the outer rim. For 50 years, they have been spreading through space like a disease. They build colonies on our worlds. They mine our asteroids. They trade with our subjects, and they refuse to bow before us." Admiral Kexthul, the Empire's greatest military commander, stepped forward. His insect-like features twitched with anger. "My Emperor, give me one fleet. I will show these humans the price of defiance." "You will have your chance, Admiral," the Emperor replied. "But first we must follow the old ways. We will give them one opportunity to surrender. Then we will destroy them completely." Meanwhile, millions of miles away in the asteroid belt of the Ross 128 system, Commander Jake Martinez was having a much better day. His ship, the New Boston, drifted slowly through the rocky field while his crew scanned for valuable minerals. Jake was a simple man from Texas who had joined the colonial fleet because he loved exploring new places. "Commander," called out Lieutenant Amy Foster from the communications station, "we're getting a priority message from... Well, this is weird. It's from something called the Zephyrian Empire." Jake pushed himself over to Amy's station in the zero gravity of the ship's bridge. "Never heard of them. What do they want?" Amy's face went pale as she read the message. "Sir, I think you need to see this yourself." Jake took the datapad and began reading. His eyebrows went up higher with each sentence. The message was formal and threatening, written in perfect English that somehow felt cold and mechanical. To the primitive species known as humans, the message began. "You have entered space that belongs to the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Your expansion ends now. You will immediately surrender all military vessels to our forces. You will pay tribute of 1 million tons of rare metals every year. Your leaders will present themselves to Emperor Vextar to pledge eternal loyalty. You have 7 of your days to comply. Failure to obey will result in the complete destruction of your species." Jake read the message twice, then handed it back to Amy. "Well," he said calmly, "that's certainly direct." "Sir, what should we do?" Amy asked. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see she was worried. "Forward it to Earth Command," Jake replied. "Add a note that says these folks seem pretty upset about something. Oh, and send a copy to the other colony ships. They might get a kick out of this." Back on Earth, President Lisa Thompson was enjoying her morning coffee when her aide burst into the Oval Office. "Madam President, we have a situation." Lisa looked up from her daily briefing. She was a calm woman who had led Earth through 3 major crises in her 2 terms as president. "What kind of situation, Marcus?" "An alien empire just threatened to destroy humanity unless we surrender in 1 week." Lisa set down her coffee cup carefully. "I see. Have you called an emergency session of the Terran Council?" "Yes, ma'am. They're gathering now." 1 hour later, Lisa sat at the head of a table surrounded by Earth's most important leaders. General Mike Davis, head of the Terran Defense Force, was reading the alien message for the 3rd time. Dr. Carlos Rivera, the chief scientist, was already pulling up star charts on his tablet. Foreign Minister Helen Rodriguez was taking notes. "So," Lisa said finally, "an empire we've never heard of wants us to surrender everything we've built over the past 50 years. "That about sums it up," General Davis replied. "They claim to control half the galaxy. If that's true, they probably have the firepower to back up their threats." Dr. Rivera looked up from his tablet. "Actually, this is fascinating. Our deep space monitoring stations have been picking up strange signals for months. Now we know what they were. This empire is huge." "How huge?" Lisa asked. "Based on the signal patterns, they control thousands of star systems. Their message was transmitted through a network that spans half the galaxy. We're dealing with a civilization that makes our little corner of space look tiny." The room fell silent for a moment. Then General Davis started chuckling. Soon Helen Rodriguez joined in. Within seconds, the entire council was laughing. "I'm sorry," General Davis said, wiping tears from his eyes. "But do they really think we're going to hand over everything just because they asked nicely?" "They did say please," Helen pointed out, which made everyone laugh harder. "In all seriousness," Dr. Rivera said, "we knew this day would come. Every expansion protocol we've developed, every defense system we've built, every contingency plan we've made has been preparing for exactly this scenario." Lisa nodded. "The Deep Space Defense Grid? Fully operational," General Davis confirmed. "Every colony has the new defensive systems. Every ship has the latest upgrades. And the special projects are ready to deploy." "What about civilian safety?" Lisa asked. "All colony ships have emergency protocols," Helen replied. "They can scatter to uninhabited systems if needed. Our merchant fleet is already moving critical supplies to secure locations." Dr. Rivera smiled. "Madam President, we've been planning for this since we first left Earth. Humanity has never been very good at surrendering to bullies." Lisa stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of the capital city stretching to the horizon. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, hostile aliens were probably watching Earth right now. "Draft a response," she said finally. "Keep it polite but firm." "What should it say?" Helen asked. Lisa turned back to the council. "Thank them for their interest in human affairs. Tell them we respectfully decline their generous offer of subjugation. And wish them a pleasant day." General Davis grinned. "They're not going to like that." "No," Lisa agreed. "They're not. But they're about to learn something important about humanity. We don't scare easily." The message was sent within the hour. Across human space, colony ships and defense stations received new orders. The colonial fleet began moving to predetermined positions. On 1,000 worlds, human settlers checked their emergency supplies and prepared for whatever was coming. Humanity had just politely told the galaxy's most powerful empire to go away. Now they would find out what that decision would cost them. Admiral Kexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. 3,000 Imperial warships moved through space in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. It was the largest fleet assembled in over 2 centuries, and it was heading straight for human space. "Admiral," his aide reported, "we are 6 light years from the first human system. Intelligence reports indicate they have approximately 200 vessels total, mostly converted civilian ships with basic weapons." Kexthul's mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his species. 200 ships against 3,000. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. The Emperor believes they are simply primitive, sir. They probably don't understand the power they are facing. "They will learn," Kexthul replied. "Send the scout ships ahead. I want to know the location of every human vessel before we begin the assault." Far ahead of the Imperial fleet, Captain Amy Foster sat in the command chair of the Deep Space Monitoring Station Vigilant Watch. Her crew of 37 maintained the most advanced sensor array in human space, a collection of instruments that could detect a ship's exhaust signature from 10 light-years away. "Captain," Ensign Tony Clark called from his station, "I'm picking up massive engine signatures bearing 27 Mark IV. Estimate 3,000 ships moving at standard cruising speed." Amy walked over to look at Tony's display. The screen showed a cloud of red dots moving slowly but steadily toward human territory. "Well," she said calmly, "that's a lot of ships. Send a message to Fleet Command, big angry fleet incoming. Estimate 3,000 ships. Recommend we put the kettle on." "Ma'am?" Tony looked confused. "British expression, Tony. Means we should prepare for guests." Amy returned to her chair. "Also send the tactical data to all defense stations. Let everyone know what's coming. Back on Earth." Dr. Carlos Rivera stood in the underground command center known as Deep 6. The facility had been built into a mountain in Colorado, and its computers controlled humanity's most secret military projects. Carlos had been working on these projects for 20 years, waiting for exactly this moment. "Initiate Protocol 7, he said to his team of engineers. Across human space, strange things began to happen. Merchant ships suddenly changed course and disappeared into empty regions of space. Mining stations went silent, their automated signals replaced by confusing static. Navigation beacons started broadcasting false information. Gravitational sensors detected ships where no ships existed. The Imperial scouts entered human territory expecting to find a simple defensive line. Instead, they found chaos. Their instruments showed human ships everywhere and nowhere at once. Sensor ghosts appeared and vanished. False signals led them to empty patches of space. "Admiral," the lead scout reported back to Kexthul, "we cannot get accurate readings on human positions. Their space is filled with interference and false signals." Kexthul was not concerned. "Primitive tricks will not save them. Proceed to the first target." The target was New Denver, a mining colony built around a rich asteroid field. Imperial intelligence said it was defended by only a few patrol ships and some civilian vessels. It would be an easy victory to start the war. Captain Ron Baker had been expecting them. His defense grid was not made of massive battleships or impressive space stations. Instead, he had spent 5 years turning the asteroid field itself into a weapon. Hidden among the rocks were thousands of weapon platforms, each one disguised to look like mining equipment. When the Imperial demonstration force of 50 ships arrived at New Denver, they saw exactly what they expected: a small collection of civilian buildings built into the largest asteroids, and a few patrol ships moving slowly between them. "Begin the attack," ordered Imperial Captain Zartek. "Destroy the patrol ships first, then the civilian structures." The Imperial ships moved forward in tight formation, their weapons charging for the first strike. Then the asteroids opened fire. What the Imperials had thought were mining platforms revealed themselves to be massive railguns. Cargo containers split open to release swarms of missiles. Even the civilian buildings joined the fight, their hidden weapons turning the entire asteroid field into a death trap. Captain Baker watched from his command post inside the largest asteroid. His tactical display showed the Imperial ships trying to reform their battle lines, but they were surrounded. Every piece of rock bigger than a football potentially contained a weapon. "Focus fire on their command ship," Baker ordered. "Let's see how they like fighting an entire solar system." The battle lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, 47 Imperial ships were either destroyed or disabled. The humans had captured 3 ships intact, along with their crews and all their technology. Ron Baker sent a simple message to Fleet Command: "New Denver secure. Imperial fleet neutralized. Captured 3 ships and 847 prisoners, requesting pickup for our new guests." Admiral Kexthul received the news while his main fleet was still 2 days away from New Denver. He stared at the report in disbelief. 50 Imperial ships defeated by a mining colony. "This must be a mistake," he told his aide. "Contact Captain Zartek immediately." Sir, Captain Zartek was captured. His ship was disabled and boarded. The humans took him and his entire crew prisoner. Kexthul felt something he had never experienced before in 1,000 years of conquest: doubt. How is this possible? They're primitives with basic technology. His aide pulled up the tactical recordings from the battle. "Sir, they turned the entire asteroid field into a weapons platform. Every piece of mining equipment was actually a hidden weapon. They fought like the space itself was their ally." On the display, Kexthul watched Imperial ships being torn apart by weapons that emerged from seemingly empty space. He saw perfectly coordinated attacks coming from dozens of directions at once. He watched human tactics that seemed to ignore every rule of space warfare he had ever learned. "Send a message to the Emperor," Kexthul ordered. "Tell him the humans are not what we expected. Request additional ships and intelligence support." "How many additional ships, sir?" Kexthul looked at the display again. 3,000 ships had seemed like overwhelming force just a few hours ago. Now he was not so sure. "All of them," he said quietly. "Request all available ships." Meanwhile, in the captured Imperial vessels, human engineers were working around the clock. Chief Engineer Kate Williams led a team of specialists who were taking apart Imperial technology, piece by piece. What they found amazed them. "Their ships are incredibly advanced," Kate reported to Earth Command. "But they're also incredibly predictable. Everything is built according to standard patterns. They have better materials and more powerful weapons, but no creativity in how they use them." "Can we copy their technology?" asked General Davis. "Better than that," Kate replied with a smile. "We can improve it. Their designs are efficient but rigid. With a few modifications, we can make their own technology work better for us than it does for them." Within days, human shipyards began producing hybrid vessels that combined Imperial technology with human innovation. The ships looked strange, with mismatched hull sections and unusual weapon configurations, but they worked in ways that Imperial engineers had never imagined. The war was just beginning, and humanity had already learned something important. Superior technology meant nothing without the creativity to use it properly. The Empire was about to discover that humans were very creative indeed. Emperor Vextar stood before his throne, all four of his arms trembling with rage. The golden chamber that had witnessed 1,000 years of victories now echoed with news of defeat. His finest admiral had just reported that a simple mining colony had destroyed 50 Imperial warships. "You want me to believe," the Emperor said slowly, "that primitives with basic technology defeated our elite forces?" Admiral Kexthal kept his head low. "My Emperor, they fight unlike any species we have encountered. They do not follow standard tactical doctrine. They turn their entire colony into a weapon." "Excuses," Vextar roared. "You will take 500 ships and crush them properly this time. Use the elite fleets. Show these humans what real power looks like." "Yes, my Emperor," Kexthal replied. "I will dispatch Prince Zarthek with the Royal Guard fleet. They will not fail." Prince Zarthek was the Emperor's youngest son and the pride of the Imperial military. His ships were the fastest and most advanced in the fleet. His crews were trained from birth to be perfect warriors. He had never lost a battle. As the prince prepared his fleet, human engineers were working frantically in shipyards across their territory. Chief Engineer Kate Williams had made a discovery that would change everything. The captured Imperial ships contained technology that worked in ways humans had never imagined. "Look at this," Kate said to her team, pointing at the display showing an Imperial ship's structure. "Their hulls are made of smart materials that can reshape themselves. Their weapons can be reconfigured in minutes. Their entire ship can change its function based on what they need." "That's incredible," said Engineer Pete Kim. "Why don't they use this capability?" "Because they're stuck thinking in old patterns," Kate replied. "They build ships for one purpose and use them the same way for centuries. But we can do better." Kate's team began designing something the galaxy had never seen: modular warships that could literally fall apart and rebuild themselves during combat. Using a combination of Imperial smart materials and human creativity, they created vessels that could be cargo ships one minute and fighters the next. The first test came at Titan's Gate, a strategic choke point between human and Imperial space. Prince Zarthek arrived with 500 of the Empire's best ships, expecting to find a desperate human defense force making their last stand. Captain Steve Morrison commanded the human fleet from his flagship, the Adaptable. His 30 ships looked small and weak compared to the massive Imperial vessels approaching them. But appearances can be deceiving. "All ships prepare for combat," Steve broadcast to his fleet. "Remember, we're not trying to outfight them. We're trying to outthink them." Prince Zarthek studied the tactical display on his ship. 30 ships against 500. "These humans must be insane." "Perhaps they know something we do not, Your Highness," suggested his aide. "What could they possibly know that we do not?" the prince replied. "Begin the attack. Standard formation. Overwhelming firepower." The Imperial ships moved forward in perfect lines, their weapons charging for a devastating first strike. The human ships seemed to panic, breaking formation and scattering in all directions. "They're running," Prince Zarthek observed with satisfaction. "Focus fire on the largest ships. Destroy them before they can escape." The Imperial weapons fired and several human ships exploded into clouds of debris. But then something impossible happened. The debris began moving with purpose. Pieces of destroyed ships flew together and rebuilt themselves into completely different vessels. What had been a destroyer split into 5 fighter craft. A cargo ship's hull unfolded into a weapons platform. 2 damaged cruisers combined their undamaged sections to create a new type of ship that Imperial sensors couldn't identify. "What is happening?" Prince Zarthek demanded. His tactical officer stared at his instruments in confusion. "Sir, the human ships appear to be changing. Their hulls are rebuilding themselves. Their weapons are reconfiguring." Captain Morrison smiled as he watched his plan unfold. The human ships weren't just fighting the Imperial fleet. They were adapting to it in real time. Every time the Imperials adjusted their tactics, the human ships changed to counter them. "Fire everything we have," Prince Zarthek ordered desperately. "Destroy them before they can change again." But it was too late. The human fleet had become something completely new, a collection of ships that worked together like a single organism. When Imperial ships targeted the weapons platforms, they dissolved into fighters. When they targeted the fighters, they reformed into larger ships with bigger guns. The battle lasted 12 hours. By the end, Prince Zarthek was retreating with less than half his fleet. Worse, the humans had captured dozens of Imperial ships and thousands of prisoners. "Send a message to my father," the prince told his aide as they fled. "Tell him these humans are not primitives. They are something else entirely. Back on Earth, President Lisa Thompson met with her council to discuss the victory at Titan's Gate. The success was impressive, but everyone knew the Empire would respond with even greater force. "How many ships do they have left?" Lisa asked General Davis. "Intelligence estimates they can field up to 10,000 ships if they mobilize everything," he replied. "That's more than we can handle with conventional tactics." Dr. Rivera leaned forward. "Conventional tactics, yes, but we're not using conventional tactics anymore. Kate's modular ship design is just the beginning. We have other projects ready to deploy." "What kind of projects?" Lisa asked. "The kind that turn our biggest weakness into our greatest strength," Rivera replied with a mysterious smile. "The Empire controls thousands of worlds, but they all follow the same patterns. They think in terms of massive fleets and overwhelming force. We think in terms of adaptation and creativity." Admiral Janet Stone, the newest member of the council, spoke up. "With respect, sir, creativity won't stop 10,000 warships." "No," Rivera agreed, "but it might turn 10,000 warships into 10,000 targets." Meanwhile, across Imperial space, Emperor Vextar was receiving reports that shook the foundations of his empire. The humans had not only defeated Prince Zarthek, they had done it using Imperial technology that worked better than when the Empire used it. "How is this possible?" the Emperor demanded. "Our technology is perfect. It has been refined over 1,000 years. My Emperor," said Chief Scientist Veltar, "I have studied the captured recordings of the battle. The humans are using our smart materials and reconfiguration systems in ways we never considered. They are making our ships change their fundamental structure during combat." "Why have we never done this?" Veltar hesitated. "Because it has never occurred to us, my Emperor. Our ships are designed for specific roles. We have always built destroyers to destroy, cruisers to cruise, and fighters to fight. The humans build ships to adapt." Emperor Vexitar felt something cold in his stomach. For the first time in his long life, he wondered if the Empire might lose a war. "Mobilize everything," he ordered. "Every ship, every fleet, every world. I want 10,000 vessels ready for battle within 1 month." "Yes, my Emperor." "But sir, what if 10,000 ships are not enough?" Vextar turned to stare out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were building ships that could change their shape and purpose at will. They were turning Imperial technology against itself. They were fighting a war in ways the Empire had never imagined. "Then we will learn to fight the way they fight," he said quietly, "or we will lose everything." The war was entering a new phase, and both sides knew it. The Empire still had overwhelming numbers, but the humans had something more valuable: the ability to change. In a galaxy that had been static for centuries, humanity was about to prove that adaptation beats tradition every time. 1 year had passed since the Empire first threatened humanity, and Emperor Vextar stood before the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 10,000 warships filled the space around the Imperial capital, their hulls gleaming in the light of 3 suns. Every world in the Empire had contributed ships and crews to this final assault. "Today we end this embarrassment," the Emperor declared over the fleet communication system. "These humans have made fools of us for too long, but no species can stand against the full might of our empire." Admiral Kexithol, still stinging from his earlier defeats, commanded the massive fleet. This time, there would be no clever tactics or surprise attacks, just overwhelming force applied directly to the human home system. "Set course for Sol," Kexithol ordered. "We will destroy their homeworld and scatter their colonies across the galaxy." The journey to Earth took 2 weeks. As the Imperial fleet moved through space, its sensors detected something strange. Human space seemed almost empty. The colonies that should have been bustling with activity were quiet. The shipping lanes that should have been full of merchant vessels were clear. "Where are they hiding?" Kexithol wondered aloud. "Perhaps they have evacuated their civilians to uninhabited systems," suggested his aide. "No matter, we will find them all eventually." But when the Imperial fleet arrived in the Alpha Centauri system, they found something that no amount of military training had prepared them for. The humans hadn't evacuated their space. They had weaponized it. Admiral Janet Stone stood in the command center of Proxima Station, watching the Imperial fleet emerge from hyperspace. Her defense force was smaller than anything the Empire had faced before. Only 50 ships that looked more like civilian vessels than military craft. All stations, this is Admiral Stone, she broadcast across the system. The Empire has arrived. Time to show them what human space really looks like. Across the Alpha Centauri system, ordinary objects began to transform. Cargo containers drifting in space suddenly sprouted weapons. Civilian space stations revealed hidden missile launchers. Even the navigation buoys turned out to be disguised sensor arrays and weapon platforms. Captain Tony Clark watched from the bridge of his mining ship, the Rock Crusher, as Imperial scouts approached his position. To their sensors, his ship looked like a harmless industrial vessel working the asteroid belt. They had no idea that every piece of mining equipment on board could be used as a weapon. "Wait for it," Tony whispered to his crew. "Let them get close." When the Imperial ships were within range, Tony's mining lasers suddenly pivoted and began cutting through Imperial hulls like paper. His ore processing equipment launched chunks of rock at incredible speeds. Even his cargo bay doors had been modified to fire magnetic projectiles. All across the system, the same thing was happening. The Empire had come expecting to fight a human fleet. Instead, they were fighting human civilization itself. Engineer Sandra Bell coordinated the defense from the orbital shipyards above Proxima Centauri. Her civilian construction crews had spent months preparing for this moment. When Imperial forces tried to capture the shipyards, they found that the workers were as dangerous as any soldiers. "Remember," Sandra told her teams over the radio, "we built this place. We know every corridor, every system, every weakness. Make them regret coming here." The orbital battle was unlike anything in military history. Human construction ships used their industrial equipment as weapons. Welding torches became cutting beams. Cargo manipulators became missile launchers. Even the automated construction drones joined the fight, swarming Imperial boarding parties like angry insects. But the strangest part of the battle was happening in space itself. Engineer Pete Kim had spent the past year installing gravity manipulators throughout the Alpha Centauri system. These devices were supposed to be used for construction work, moving large objects through space safely. Now Pete was using them for something completely different. "Activate Gravitational Field 7, Pete commanded from his control station. "Let's see how they like fighting in variable gravity." Suddenly, Imperial ships found their formations scattered as local gravity fluctuated wildly. Ships that had been flying in perfect lines were pulled in different directions. Weapons that had been aimed at human targets suddenly pointed at empty space. Admiral Kexthul watched in horror as his carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. His ships were fighting not just human vessels but the very fabric of space around them. "Admiral," his aide called out urgently, "the humans have turned their entire system into a weapon. Every piece of civilian infrastructure is attacking us. How is this possible?" Kexthul demanded. Before anyone could answer, the Rock Crusher appeared on their view screen. What had looked like a simple mining ship was now surrounded by a cloud of weaponized debris, all of it under Captain Clark's control. "Imperial Fleet," came a calm voice over the communication system. "This is Captain Tony Clark of the human mining vessel Rock Crusher. You are trespassing in our system and threatening our families. Please leave now or we will be forced to remove you." Kexthul stared at the screen. "They want us to surrender to a mining ship?" "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "that mining ship just destroyed 3 of our cruisers." The battle raged for 2 days. The Empire had brought overwhelming force, but the humans had turned their entire civilization into a military asset. Every ship, every station, every piece of equipment became part of the defense. Colonel Sandra Bell's ground forces proved that humans were just as dangerous on foot. When Imperial Marines tried to capture key installations, they found themselves fighting construction workers with welding equipment, miners with explosive charges, and engineers who had turned their tools into weapons. "These aren't soldiers," reported one confused Imperial officer. "They're civilians who fight like demons." "All humans are soldiers when they need to be," Sandra replied over the captured radio. "We just prefer to build things instead of destroying them." By the end of the second day, Admiral Kexthul was forced to make a decision no Imperial commander had ever faced. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by what appeared to be a civilian population that refused to act like civilians. "Signal retreat," he ordered reluctantly. "Sir?" his aide asked in disbelief. "Signal retreat!" Kexthul shouted. "We cannot fight an entire star system that has been turned into a weapon." As the Imperial fleet limped away from Alpha Centauri, Engineer Pete Kim sent a message to Earth Command. System secure. Imperial fleet retreating. Estimate 60% casualties among enemy forces. Our losses are minimal. Recommend we offer them some coffee and a chance to talk. President. Lisa Thompson received the message in her office on Earth. She smiled as she read Pete's casual report of humanity's greatest military victory. Send a message to the Imperial fleet, she told her aide. Tell them we're willing to discuss terms if they're interested in ending this war. The response came back within hours. Emperor Vextar himself wanted to negotiate. The war wasn't over, but both sides now understood something important. The Empire had learned that superior numbers meant nothing against superior adaptability. And humanity had learned that sometimes the best way to end a fight is to prove you can't be beaten. The galaxy was about to change, and it was humanity that would show everyone how. The Imperial Palace had never hosted negotiations before. For 1,000 years, conquered species had simply been brought before the Emperor to surrender. Now, for the first time in Imperial history, alien delegates sat across from the Emperor as equals. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez entered the Crystal Chamber with confidence, followed by Dr. Peter Kim and General Mike Davis. The three humans looked small compared to the massive aliens surrounding them, but their calm demeanor impressed even the Emperor's advisors. Emperor Vextar studied the humans carefully. These creatures had defeated his greatest fleets using nothing but creativity and determination. He needed to understand how they had done it. You have caused great damage to our empire, the Emperor began, his forearms folded across his chest. Many of our ships are destroyed. Many of our warriors are captured. Your Majesty, Helen replied politely, you declared war on us. We simply defended ourselves. Defended? The Emperor's voice rose. You turned your entire civilization into a weapon. You made mockery of our military traditions. Dr. Peter Kim stepped forward. Your Majesty, may I show you something? Before the Emperor could respond, Peter activated a small device he had brought. Holographic displays filled the air, showing technical diagrams and energy readings. This is our fusion reactor technology, Peter explained. We can turn any planet into a garden world within 10 years. This is our quantum communication system. It allows instant contact across any distance. This is our self-replicating construction technology. We can build entire cities in months instead of centuries. The Imperial scientists in the room leaned forward, studying the displays with growing amazement. The technology Peter was showing them was far beyond anything in their databases. Impossible, whispered Chief Scientist Veltar. These energy readings suggest they can manipulate matter at the atomic level. Why do you show us this? Emperor Vextar demanded. Helen smiled. Because we want you to understand something important. We didn't fight you with our most advanced weapons. We fought you with mining equipment and construction tools. The room fell silent. Every Imperial advisor understood the implication immediately. If humans could defeat their greatest fleet using civilian equipment, what could they do with actual military technology? You could have destroyed us completely, the Emperor said slowly. Yes, General Davis confirmed. But we didn't want to destroy you. We wanted to change you. Dr. Peter Kim continued his presentation. Your empire is vast and powerful, but it hasn't grown in centuries. You use the same ships, the same tactics, the same strategies that you used 1,000 years ago. You've become so focused on control that you've forgotten how to innovate. What are you suggesting? Asked Admiral Kexthal. Partnership, Helen replied. We're offering to share our technology and our methods with any Imperial world that wants to learn. The Emperor's advisors began talking among themselves in excited whispers. The technology the humans were offering could revolutionize their civilization. What do you want in return? Vextar asked suspiciously. Freedom, Helen said simply. Freedom for humanity to explore and expand. Freedom for Imperial worlds to choose their own path. And freedom for both our species to learn from each other. Emperor Vextar was quiet for a long time. He had ruled the galaxy through fear and overwhelming force for his entire life. The idea of ruling through cooperation and mutual benefit was completely foreign to him. Some of our worlds will reject this offer, he said finally. We know, General Davis replied. We're not asking you to change everything overnight. We're just asking you to give your people a choice. Dr. Peter Kim activated another display. We've prepared detailed proposals for agricultural improvement, industrial advancement, and scientific research. Any Imperial world that wants to participate can begin immediately. The negotiations continued for 3 days. By the end, something unprecedented had happened. The Emperor had agreed to transform the Empire from a military dictatorship into a voluntary alliance of independent worlds. Some imperial worlds chose to maintain the old ways, but many others eagerly embraced the human partnership. Within months, fusion-powered cities were rising on imperial planets. Quantum communication networks connected distant worlds. Self-replicating construction systems built infrastructure at incredible speed. The galaxy began to change. 5 years later, Admiral Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the exploration ship New Frontier, watching the construction of humanity's greatest achievement yet. The massive shipyard floating in space was a joint project between humans and over 100 imperial worlds. "It's beautiful," said his first officer, Commander Amy Foster. Jake nodded as he watched human and alien workers cooperating to build ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These new vessels combined the best of both technologies, designed for exploration rather than conquest. "Hard to believe it all started with them threatening to destroy us," Amy commented. "That's humanity for you," Jake replied with a smile. "Someone threatens us and we end up making them better than they were." On the imperial capital, Emperor Vextar walked through his palace, which had been transformed from a symbol of conquest into a center of learning. Human scientists worked alongside imperial researchers, sharing knowledge and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The Empire still existed, but it was no longer the stagnant, oppressive force it had once been. Some worlds had chosen to maintain their independence. Others had formed new alliances. The galaxy was more diverse and more vibrant than it had ever been. In his private chambers, Vextar often wondered what would have happened if he had never threatened humanity. Would the Empire have continued its slow decline into irrelevance? Would the galaxy have remained locked in its ancient patterns forever? But then he would look out at the stars and see the new ships exploring unknown regions, carrying crews of humans and aliens working together. He would see the quantum communication networks spreading knowledge across the galaxy faster than ever before. He would see worlds that had been barren for centuries blooming with new life. The humans had done exactly what they promised. They had changed everything. Captain Tony Clark, now retired from active service, sat in his garden on New Eden, a planet that had been transformed from a lifeless rock into a paradise using human terraforming technology. His wife Sarah tended to flowers that grew in soil that hadn't existed 5 years ago. "Do you ever regret it?" Sarah asked him one evening as they watched the sunset. "Regret what?" "The war. All that fighting and danger." Tony thought about it for a moment. "You know what I regret? I regret that it took a war to bring out the best in both species. Imagine what we could have accomplished if we had started working together from the beginning." Sarah smiled. "Well, we're working together now." "Yes," Tony agreed, watching as human and alien children played together in the garden. "I suppose that's what matters." Across the galaxy, humanity continued to do what it did best. They explored new worlds, built impossible things, and turned enemies into friends. They proved that the greatest victory wasn't defeating your opponents, but showing them a better way to live. The Galactic Empire had declared war on humanity, expecting to find primitives who would surrender quickly. Instead, they found teachers who would change their civilization forever, and humanity. Humanity remained unfazed, just as they always had when faced with the impossible. They simply rolled up their sleeves and got to work making the galaxy a better place for everyone.